Hey guys, Yip here with another video, and this is going to be a video on maximizing your weaknesses as Warlock in Mythic Plus. And the reason this video is very important is because a lot of Warlocks that I play with, a lot of Warlocks that I run Mythic Plus runs with, they do this very poorly. They don't maximize their weakness, and the weakness that they don't maximize is ramp time, okay? Affliction Warlock naturally just has a lot of ramp. It takes a long time for you to get all of your damage out. This be because you're a dot class. This also be because Seed of Corruption has to explode before you start doing damage on most trash pulls. This being because Agony has stacks. Your dots have to be ticking. You need Reap. All this sort of stuff leads to Warlock having a very high ramp time when it comes to doing damage on a large number of mobs or even a small number of mobs in a Mythic Plus run, okay? And the reason this problem is so emphasized in Mythic Plus is simply because trash packs don't last a very long time in Mythic Plus. Trash packs die extremely quickly in a Mythic Plus run. And since trash packs are dying extremely quickly, the amount of damage that you do on the start of the pull is very, very, it's going to be very important to do a lot of damage in the start, because by the time the end of the pull is over, you may have reached your maximum DPS, but you've probably missed about 5 to 6 million of your maximum DPS because you were doing hardly any damage at the very beginning of the trash pull when all of these other classes were bursting for a ton of damage, okay? So that's going to be very relevant when it comes to looking at your total damage at the end of the run. It's not going to be extremely relevant looking at your total DPS, but when it comes to looking at your total damage, if you're spending a long time getting your damage up and ramping in Mythic Plus as an Affliction Warlock, that's like 5 to 6 to 7 million DPS, or not DPS, but damage that you're losing every single trash pull. And if you're losing 5 to 6 million damage every trash pull, at the end of the instance, that's going to add up to being quite a bit of damage, right? So I want to talk about how to minimize this this ramp weakness that a Warlock has in two specific scenarios in a Mythic Plus. And I also want to talk about ways that you can combat this and different sort of gear pieces that assist with this, although not everyone will have access to these gear pieces, okay? But you don't need access to the gear pieces in order to be efficient and in order to be a little bit better at maximizing this weakness in Mythic Plus, okay? So first, I want to show you guys why this weakness is so prevalent on a Warlock in Mythic Plus, and then I want to talk about two different scenarios in which you can combat this weakness and how to start pushing yourself a little bit further in Mythic Plus, okay? So usually in Mythic Plus, or on general, on 3 targets, I'm generally able to get to about 1 million DPS, okay? I'm generally able to get around 1 million DPS on a 3 target pull in Mythic Plus. But I want to show you guys how long it takes me to get there, okay? Now you might not think this is a very long time at all, but every second I'm away from 1 million DPS, that's 1 million damage I'm losing, okay? So it's very, very relevant. It's very important, especially considering how low health most mobs have in a Mythic Plus run in general, okay? So, I'm just going to start here, pulling the damage. And I want you guys to look at my DPS. 6k, 65k, 53, 47k. This is taking me a while to reach up. Now it's starting to go. Now I have my damage rolling. Now it's starting to get up there, but I'm still nowhere close to 1 million. It's going to take me some time, And since it takes such a long time as an Affliction Warlock to get your DPS really up there, really ramped up, and really going, it's very, very important that at the beginning of a trash pull, you're able to do as much damage as possible before anyone else is able to do damage as an Affliction Warlock, just because of the amount of time that it does take you to ramp your damage up in a Mythic Plus, okay? So if I was to keep going, my damage would keep going up and up and up. But as you can see, it takes me a very, very long time to reach, high numbers of DPS. And this is simply because Warlock has that ramp. It has that ramp where it needs to get its agonies out. It has that ramp where it needs its Seed of Corruption to pop to get all your corruptions on all of the mobs. It has that time where you need to cast your UAs or your Seed of Corruption in order to start doing damage, where as classes like mages, like death knights, all those demon hunters, they just have those cooldowns ready before the trash pull starts, and they just press a button and it's there instantly for them, right? That damage is just there, okay? But as a Warlock, it takes you some time to get up to that damage. Obviously, this is less of an issue at higher levels of Mythic Plus because trash mobs do tend to live a slight bit longer, but especially anything under a 12, trash mobs tend to be dying at a relatively quick rate, and you really need to learn how to quickly get out as much damage as possible in order to make so that while all of these classes, they can, get in there and start doing a lot of damage, as a Warlock, you need to make sure that you're doing a lot of damage very quickly, but also start doing damage before anyone else even starts, so your dots have time to do their work, okay? So I'm going to talk about two situations where you guys want to utilize two different methods, and this will cover basically all of Mythic Plus, okay? So the two situations I want to cover is one with elite mobs that are going to be living for a relatively long period of time, anywhere between 20 and 40 seconds. And then the other situation is on trash pulls that are only going to last 10 to 15 seconds, okay? So either one, really, really long pulls, or two, really, really baby quick pulls, okay? And we'll start with the really long pulls, and we'll talk a little bit about why long pulls are different than shorter pulls, and then we'll talk about shorter pulls and how to maximize your damage on that, so you guys have info on how to do both, okay? So obviously in the Mythic Plus guide that I talked about on 3 mobs, I told you it was effective to UA and then drain. That's still the case, but I'm just going to be talking about it as if you're pulling more than 3 mobs for the case of the video, okay? And just for Mythic Plus in general, you pull more than 3 mobs most of the time. So as a Warlock on 3 mobs, or 3 or more mobs, your rotation is going to be spamming Seed of Corruption and getting Agonies out for the most part. Now I want to talk a little bit about how to do this on the elite mobs relative about how to do this on the smaller pack of mobs, okay? So let's envision for a second, I'm doing a Maw of Souls carry, and we're going to be pulling all the way up to the first boss, okay? So when you run across the bridge, there's going to be a set of mobs here, and there's going to be a set of mobs over here, and there's going to be the boss, okay? So as an Affliction Warlock, when you're paired up with a class like a Mage, a lot of the time you're going to find a very hard time getting to a high number of total damage, because generally speaking, the Mage is just going to kill everything before you have a chance to get your damage off. So I had to work really hard in order to figure out a way to make my damage relevant, so the Mage just wasn't stealing all of it at the very beginning of the run. And the way that I did that was I made sure that I was right up there with the tank. I was making sure I was running right with the tank, okay? Like I was next to him, and as soon as we got across the bridge, I would instantly start pre-casting a Seed of Corruption, okay? I would just, before the tank even pulled the mobs, I knew he was going to grab them anyways, I would instantly start casting Seed of Corruption, start getting that cast off, because it's a 2.13 second cast, and using Agonies, okay? The reason I would use Agonies on all the mobs that got the seed was because I know eventually those seeds are going to pop, but I need the shard gen for later in the pull, because the pull is probably going to last longer than me casting 3 Seed of Corruptions. So not only do I have the Agonies out to get those seeds to pop very, very early before even all the trash is, you know, clumped together and the Mage starts bursting, I already have 3 seeds out before anything's even happened. But not only that, I also have 3 Agonies out before we even start AoEing, okay? And having that 5 to 6 second, 5 to 6 global advantage just really helps so much as a Warlock on a big trash pull like that. Having that 3 to 5 globals extra before anyone starts doing damage is something that you really need to work on as a Warlock in order to out DPS people on massive trash pulls, okay? So I'll just show you the rotation quickly, but in general what you're going to want to be doing is precasting that Seed of Corruption on the mass number of elite mobs before he's even got them grouped up, and getting your Agonies out right away, and then you probably want to pop them with a Drain Soul, and then just continue to cast Seed until your shard count's getting low, and you need to refresh those Agonies, okay? So obviously it's a fairly basic rotation, and it's not that hard to do, but the most important thing about it is get it out as fast as possible. Don't wait until all the mobs are grouped up to do a massive amount of AoE. It doesn't matter, because your seeds are going to last long enough to where by the time they get grouped up, that's when they're going to start popping anyways, and you're going to get your corruptions out. Make sure you get as many Seed of Corruptions and Agonies out as quickly as possible. So sometimes, even on the first pull of Maw of Souls, I would precast Seed of Corruption, I would get, 1 to 2 Agonies out, and then I would just target a different mob and start seeding it, and then getting those Agonies out. And I would just keep tabbing and keep seeding. Even though the seeds haven't popped, I'm just trying to get a high number of Seed of Corruptions out with a few Agonies, because I know once they explode, all of them are going to start chain popping, and I'm going to be doing a crazy amount of damage. I'm going to have all my Corruptions out. My damage is super going to ramp, and I'm actually going to be able to compete with that Mage on big trash pulls, okay? So that's the first way you want to handle it on elite mobs. You want to make sure that you're pre-casting Seed of Corruption as early as possible, getting 1 to 2 Agonies out, and then just starting to cast Seed of Corruption again. Make sure you're getting your damage out as early as possible, okay? So that's the first scenario. The second scenario I want to talk about is on a bunch of little mobs, okay? Mobs that are only going to last 10 to 15 seconds, whether it be in Vault of the Warden, the little belchers that, only have a little bit of health. They're non-elite mobs. Any sort of non-elite mobs. The crabs in Eye of Ashara, the spawns in Darkheart Thicket, the mana worms and quarter stars, any sort of trash pull like this, you're going to be playing a little bit differently than you would on an elite mob, okay? And the reason you're playing a little bit differently than you would on a set of elite mobs in a Mythic Plus is because you don't need to cast Agony. You don't really need to get agonies out on these small health minions, simply because, one, when they get low health and they're about to die, you can drain them for shards back, and since they die so quickly, you're not really too worried about your shard gen. And number two, by the time you cast 1 to 2 Seed of Corruptions, they're already dead, so you're not really spending that much resources on the mobs anyways, and since you're getting them back by draining at the end of the trash pull anyways, you're not really losing that much damage, okay? So the way that I deal with these small pulls in Mythic Plus, either whether it be, the crabs or whatever it is, I just cast Seed of Corruption, like always, pre-cast Seed of Corruption, and then I just drain it, so it procs as quickly as possible, and then I seed, and then I drain, and, and then I seed, and then I drain, and when I stop casting Seed is when the mobs get about, 25 to 30% health. I know in the time that I'm going to cast a Seed of Corruption, they're already going to be dead. My Seed of Corruption cast is just going to fizzle. I'll just start draining just to try to kill one quicker and try to get that soul flame damage a little faster, plus attempting to get a shard back for all those shards that I spent, okay? So make sure on the small trash pulls, you're not worried about getting agony out, you're just worried about getting as many seeds as you can out, and also popping the seeds as early as possible so you're able to get that corruption DPS out, okay? So this has been a video on how to maximize your weakness as an Affliction Warlock, and that be the ramp time, and I hope this video has helped you guys. Just remember, on the elite trash pulls, make sure you're getting your seed out as fast as possible. Make sure you're pre-casting those agonies, make sure you're getting all of that damage, and on the smaller trash pulls, just make sure you're popping your seeds as quickly as possible and getting out as many as you can in a small time span, okay? So, thanks for watching. This has been a video on how to do, or how to work your weakness as a Warlock in a Mythic Plus. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.